do everything that we have. It's human nature for us to love it when we first get it, see it, do it, whatever. But given enough time, it gets old. We have a saying in education, familiarity breeds contempt. Okay? You're supposed to love, care for, do for your children, but my children all understand I am their teacher, not their friend. Another thing I teach them is teachers are better than friends. Why? A friend will lie to you to keep from hurting your feelings. A teacher's going to tell you the truth, whether it hurts your feelings or not. Okay? So human nature being what it is, you can go back through the Bible and see where this plays out. You go back to Israel. He goes to his uncle, and he stays with his uncle. When he's first there, they're glad he's there. He gives him his daughters. They marry. They make, children and everything else. But it says that Laban, finally, countenance changed towards him. Wasn't as happy. Why? Joseph had grown God had blessed him, and he had grown. And Laban was not as powerful as he used to be. So he started looking at Joseph sideways. And Joseph knew, Israel knew it was time for him to leave. Jacob's ladder story. Okay? I called him Israel because of what Jacob, God changed his name from Jacob to Israel. But that's the whole side of human nature. Okay? Excited when you get here. My grandfather used to have a saying. He lived through the Depression. Bless the comers and leavers, dadgum the comers and stayers. Because they had a lot of people in the cities that didn't have jobs anymore, and they would come out in the country and they would want to live with the grandparents and all. And there was only so much food, and they didn't really like it when they had to go out in the field and work because they were used to city jobs. So when they came and they figured out that this wasn't it, and they went on to do something else and find another way to live and not living off the farm that had very meager amount, grandfather was not always sad to see them go their own way. This is how it is with Israel. Israel is in Egypt. When they got there, Joseph was there. Joseph saved the country. It kept Egypt from starving to death. Predicted what was going to happen. And for many years, they says half the time, hundreds of years, the relationship between Israelites and the kingdom of Egypt was good and profited them all. It was beneficial to both sides, and they really worked good together. But then there arose a Pharaoh that didn't know Joseph after hundreds of years. Didn't know what he did for him. Didn't care. And he looked at Israel and saw how big they'd gone, how God had blessed them, and how they were many, many more. And he goes, they can turn on us. So then that's when things go bad. When people get envious. And that's what happened here. So 400 years later, Moses shows up. He goes through all the trials and everything he has to go through. God finally bends the knee of Pharaoh, having to go as far as kill his own child. He instituted everything for Israel and how he wanted Israel to live. And now it's time to leave. Them leaving was a big deal. You're talking about more than 1 million people. That would be all Titusville and all of Melbourne all getting together in one place, figuring out who's going to lead, how we're going to do this, do we have the food, everything else. Why is Sabbath 7 days? Sabbath? Why is it? Because it took that long to gather all the people of Israel together just to leave. Oh, by the way, they had to go dig up the bones of Joseph. Joseph said, when y'all leave, and you're going to leave, and God's going to come and visit this nation and bring you out of here, don't leave my bones behind. And they did. They went and found his bones, and they brought him with them to bury him with his fathers in the promised land. So there was a group in charge of Joseph's bones the whole time. So they're getting ready to leave. They got to have food and water. They got to get their cattle together. They got to find enough carts and stuff for all the little children to ride in. Oh yeah, and then they had to go and pillage the Egyptians. It wasn't very hard. The Egyptians were under a threat of death. You'd already lost your firstborn. How many more? I'd like to borrow some of your gold necklace. Here you go, get out please. Okay? And it said that they spoiled Egypt and they left with much treasure. So now it's time to head out. Now, go to my map please. God could have taken them a very easy route and come out of where they were in Goshen and go right up there the way of the Philistines and straight into Israel, and they'd have been there. Not God's plans. Because he knew that if they went into Philistines were going to start fighting against them, and it would scare them, and they might turn around and go back to Egypt. So God said, we're going to go the long way. So he brought them out of there to Sukkos, okay, on the way to Mount Sinai. But they had to go across the desert. Look at that. If they had gone north, they'd been through nice green territory, and then they would have hit the Philistine way. But no, let's go the hard way. Let's go down and have to cross the sea. For those of you who want to follow along, I am going to be in Exodus 14, 1 through 31. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, that they may turn and camp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, opposite of Baal-zephon. And you shall camp before it by the sea. And for Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are bewildered by the land, and the wilderness has closed them in. And then I will harden Pharaoh's heart, so that he will pursue them. And I will gain honor over Pharaoh and over all his army, that of the Egyptians may know that I'm the Lord. He's doing this to show his glory. You understand, all glory throughout all the world, throughout all time, all the glory goes to God. Bad things, good things, show the glory of God. Everything from the planting of the trees to the growing of the crops, it shows the glory of God. The wars of men shows the glory of God. We can't always understand it, we can't see it, but God is all about everything, his creation, showing his glory. And they did so. That's an important statement. He told them what to do, and guess what? They did it. You know, that's a sign that every Christian should understand. God tells you to do something. God shows you to do something. God puts on your heart to do something. Do it. Now it was told the king of Egypt the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants were turned against the people, and they said, why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? So he made ready his chariots, and he took his people with him. He also, that's an important word, also. Okay, he's taken his armies. Everybody just thinks about chariots. No, he took all his horsemen and his army. He also took his chariots. Okay, he also took 600 choice chariots, and all the chariots of Egypt with captains over every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and he pursued the children of Israel. Now he's going to chase after them. Think about this. These people are not going to move fast. You got children and cattle and wagons and everything else. It's going to take you a long time to make good distance. If you drive too hard in the desert, your cattle will die, your sheep will die. You've got to take your time. But here comes Pharaoh. He's in the best chariots of Egypt. And he is, with all his horsemen and where they are chasing after you. They're going to catch up pretty quick. Then Pharaoh drew near the children of Israel, lifted up their lives, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, so they were afraid, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. Then they said to Moses, I love this statement, because there were no graves in Egypt, you have taken us away to die in this wilderness. Boy, do you hear a lack of faith there? This is not the word. Is this not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? They're saying that no matter how bad it was in Egypt, no how much we got beat or anything else or what Pharaoh did, it was better than dying out here in the desert. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die here in the wilderness. And Moses said to the people, do not be afraid. Stand still. I love that. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. They had already witnessed 10 major events where God had come down and decimated the Egyptians. Their land was destroyed. Their people were dead. But they're still doubting the Lord. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than die in this wilderness. Don't be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians you see today, you shall see again no more forever. The Lord will fight for you. Notice he's not saying, y'all are going to have to pick up your axes and your staves and everything, and you're going to have to fight. He didn't say that. Even though the Lord called them his army, they weren't an army yet. They were farmers, bricklayers, all these different things that they were, but they weren't an army yet. God had to turn them into an army. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. In other words, be quiet. And the Lord shall say to Moses, why do you cry to me? Why are these people crying to me? What's wrong? Haven't I already saved you all this way? Tell the children to go forward. Well, they're up against the sea. I'd be like right here. The sea's right there. And they say, go. God says, go forward. But lift up your rod and stretch it out over the sea and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go over on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I indeed will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them, so I will gain honor over Pharaoh and all his armies, his chariots and his horsemen. He's saying, there it is. Stretch out your rod. I'm going to split the sea. You're going to walk across on dry land. And then when you get across, I'm going to take care of these Egyptians for you. Then the Egyptians shall know that I'm the Lord, when I have gained honor for myself over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. And hear this. And the angel of God, who went before the camp of Israel, moved and went behind them. Up to this time, they were led by an angel. Now the angel goes behind them to protect them, so they can get across the sea. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. Thus shall the pillar. So I want you to see something. On one side, it's a pillar of light for all the Israelis to see in the darkness. On the other side, it was a dark cloud to the Egyptians, and they couldn't see what they were doing. Thus it was a cloud and darkness to one, and it gave light by night to the other, so that one did not come near the other all that night. So had a whole night, they didn't have to worry about the Egyptians. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters divided. So the waters divided, and then the wind blew on the bottom of the ocean and dried it up. I believe that's literal. When they walked on that sand of the bottom of the sea, can you imagine they're seeing seashells and everything else beside them? And on either side of them is these